Medrash at this time in the morning, and mamish a kol Torah, like in the middle of first seder and yeshiva, unbelievable. I think that is something that is very appropriate to people learning Pele Yoeitz. In my opinion, the sharpest piece of Pele Yoeitz is in Erech Kviyas, where he speaks about the importance of Kviyas Itam LaTorah and specifically learning right away after Shachris. He says over there, Loshain, that I would grab people by their collar and put a chain of steel around them to keep them in the Beis Medrash for a few minutes after davening just to learn before going to start their day. Whoever is learning the Sefer Pele Yoeitz realizes that the Sefer Pele Yoeitz is a very, very unique Musar Sefer. He speaks about hundreds of topics. We don't have any other Musar Sefer that speaks about so many different topics, right? Most Musar Sfarim have, let's say, 10 or 15 sha'arim on the classic midas. Pele Yoeitz, you look in the index, there's about 400 topics that he speaks about. And in every topic, he says things on one hand which are very simple, but very, very practical and easy to be Mekayim. And they can literally be game changers. One of the Sfarim I wrote is a Skula Sefer. And, everyone's always looking for a Skula for something because we all need Yeshuas in different inyanim. The Sefer Zera Shimshon became very popular as a Sefer that's Masugal to learn. It's important to know that the Pele Yoeitz in the Hakdama to his Sefer called Oireis Elim, which is another very beautiful Sefer of the Pele Yoeitz, not as well known, he asks over there that people should learn his Torah, and he says, and please say over from me things in the Beis Medrash, and if you do that, it'll bring me a Nachas Ruach. V'im eske levaker beheicholi, he says, I'm zoiche to make it into Ilam Haba. Abasher Weiss once came with me to the cave of the Pele Yoeitz, and he was very, very nispal of this lashon of anova, where someone who had, accomplished so much in his lifetime was such a mazaka harabim, wrote 10 svarim, and he im eske levaker beheicholi, if I'll be zoiche to make it into Gan Eden, ashalem b'meitava. He says, I'll pay you back well for saying over Torah from me. So I think that it's important, anyone that learns Pele Yoeitz, every time you come across like one of these things that are just a little bit of an eye-opener, that day, whoever you meet in your office, chavrusa, a friend, share with him what you learned from the Pele Yoeitz. You get the skula. So I'm going to share with you a piece of Pele Yoeitz, which is a very classic example of something very, very simple, very practical, that could mamish make the whole difference in a person's life. Right? What are we all looking for in life? Lamaisa. Hatzlacha. Everyone wants hatzlacha in everything. Hatzlacha in their learning, hatzlacha in their parnatza, hatzlacha with their children. There's a Moirdik Pele Yoeitz in the Erech Shem Shamayim. We all know, we talk about Yosef and we say Yosef HaTzadik. There isn't a pasuk in the Chumash that calls Yosef a tzaddik, right? Noach is called a tzaddik. Yosef is not called a tzaddik in the Torah. There's a pasuk in Nevi'im where it refers to him as a tzaddik. But we don't have a pasuk that says Yosef HaTzadik. What is Yosef called in the Torah? Ish Matzliach. 3 times within a few psukim, the pasuk says he was Matzliach, Kol Asher, Asa, he was Matzliach, and it calls him an Ish Matzliach. So when we find someone that's Matzliach, we want to tap in and know what is his Hatzlacha and how can we connect to that Hatzlacha. Yosef, by the way, was the biggest Asher ever, right? We know that Koirach was an Asher, and it says, how did Koirach have his Ashirs? Because he found one of the Oitzres of Yosef. But Yosef was a Gevaldika Asher. Says the Pele Yoeitz the following words, right? We know the Rashi. Rashi says, what was Yosef's Hatzlacha? Because it says that Shem Shamayim was Shogar al Piv. Whatever he did, right, his Odain saw that he was always saying Shem Shamayim. And that's what brought us Hatzlacha. Says the Pele Yoeitz, these are his words. Hine kichein. Therefore, Toiv la Gever, Sheyeh Shem Shamayim Shogar al Piv. It's good that a person should make sure that Shem Shamayim is always on his tongue. Vilifnei, he says, V'im asa davar, right? Someone did something and now they're telling over what they did. Yoimar, asisi zois, b'siyata d'shmaya. Just hear those 2 words. I did this, b'siyata d'shmaya. V'im oisa davar, if you're going to be doing something, say, Ani oisa zeh, be'ezras Hashem. Just add those 2 words. Says the Pele Yoeitz, V'im yasakein, Hashem matzliach biyadai. Right? So you want hatzlacha? Just add, you're saying over something you did, say, I did it, be'ezras Hashem. I'm doing it, b'siyata d'shmaya. It's something we sometimes do. It's something very, very simple. But he says if you do it, you will be matzliach. So that's, I think, a very good example of a very simple thing that, we all know the Rashi, we all know the psukim about Yosef, but he says, do this lamaisa. And he gives even a lashon of avtacha. If you do this, Hashem will be matzliach b'yodcha. It's a tease for me ever to speak about the Pele Yoeitz anywhere so short because there's so much to share. I've been learning the Pele Yoeitz for many, many years, and it's a sefer that's very chaviv by Gdolei Solo, the Doiros. Different Gedolim have said about the sefer that it was written Baruch HaKodesh. The Maral Diskins itself was quoted as saying that, Shmuel Salant. And I'll leave this out there. I'd love to hear if anyone has theories. I always wondered, why is that, right? What did they feel about the Sefer Pele Yoeitz, these Gedolim? It's written Baruch HaKodesh. I mean, we have hundreds of thousands of Sfarim that were written by so many great Gedolim. Does that mean other Sfarim weren't written Baruch HaKodesh? And I'll just say very briefly a theory that I have, but it's a theory. Rav Asher Weiss at the Kever heard my theory, and he said, it's possible. He suggested another theory. I'll say very, very briefly. My theory that was that when you learn Pele Yoeitz, or when you open the Pele Yoeitz, often you'll find, I've heard this from many other people, that it seems like you just, got to a place in the Sefer randomly. Like you missed the day yesterday, now you're learning it. You either are holding in that place randomly, and somehow it's very relevant to something that's negea you. And you say, wow, this is so interesting. I just spoke to someone about this, or I just plan on dealing with something that has to do with this. How does that happen that, so many people feel that? So a sefer that's written with a certain kedusha, with a certain ruach hakodesh, that sefer can be a kli for that hashkacha pratis, right? People that learn daf yomi, you see that too. Sometimes daf yomi, sometimes it's amazing the way it lines up with the Nyan of the yomi. You're learning the Masechta, and there's no shaykhis to the, and all of a sudden the yontif that comes up or something happening in the world. I once started making a list, and I have tens of examples of that in the machzor of daf yomi, where fascinating things that everyone's blown away. So, daf yomi, that's shas. But to see a sefer from 200 years ago, to feel that level of hashkacha pratis, that might be what they meant as written Baruch HaKodesh. Just Rav Asher Weiss, his theory that he suggested was, he said that, that kufa that the Pele Yoeitz lived, so that's around the time of the Chassam Sofer. So, we know we have the giant, the Chassam Sofer, and many of the Gedolei Yisrael in his generation were Talmidim of Chassam Sofer. So it's not a Pele that out of the base medrash of Chassam Sofer came these great Gedolim, right? There was like a Merkaz of Torah in a certain place. The Pele Yoeitz is someone that's born in Serbia and Bosnia, and he pops up sort of out of nowhere, meaning he mentions the names of his Rebbeim, but that all of a sudden a personality like that leaves over 10 knakadik svarim in halacha, in Agoda, right? A Musar Sefer that makes such an impact on Klal Yisrael and translated to so many languages and learned by so many people, accepted, Pele Yoeitz Sefer accepted by Litvish, Chassidish, Ashkenazim, Sfardim. It's one of those svarim that just crosses all sects. So he felt that the phenomena of such a gadol popping up in such a small and surprising place is something that's divine. That was his theory. Anyway, I believe that we're out of time. I would love to share more, but...
Go ahead.